If you've clicked on this video, you've probably just gotten your driver's license, and if you're in Australia, that means you've gotten your learner's license or your P plates, and you're going to be looking for your very first car. But if you're looking to get an S15 Silvia for your first car, it might not be the best idea, and in this video, I'm going to tell you guys exactly why. So if you have the idea of wanting an S15 for your first car, I get it. Like for your first car, you want a car that's cool, that's fast, that your friends and mates and people out in the street would love and respect. And I especially understand the S15 Silvia as well. Like it's a lot of people's dream car. And if you have the ability to get it for your first car, I get why you'd want it. This thing, obviously, it looks absolutely amazing. It's turbocharged. It sounds so cool with that turbo flutter and dose. And it's honestly an awesome car to own and experience. But before you get an S15 Silvia for your first car, there's a few things to keep in mind. So a big thing to keep in mind is that the S15 Silvias are not cheap cars anymore. And when you first get your license and you're getting a first car, you should honestly be getting a car that's really cheap to actually buy and maintain as well. Because when you're first learning how to drive, you are going to be a lot harder on the car. Like just being real, especially if you're learning to drive a manual too, like you're going to be a lot harder on that clutch, like learning how to drive manual. And a lot of people, when they're first learning manual, actually burn through the clutches, and you need to pull the gearbox out and replace the clutch, and which obviously is a pretty big job and costs a lot of money. But if that happens when you have an S15, it's a pretty big job, pretty expensive with the parts and the labor. But if you have another car that's a lot cheaper, that whole process would definitely not cost anywhere near as much as it would in an S15. And plus, S15 Silvias are low to the ground. Like, let's be honest, if you're buying an S15, it's probably not going to be stock. It's most likely going to be lowered, and with that in mind, you're going to have a car that's close to the ground. And when you're learning how to drive, it just adds more difficulty to your driving. When you're learning, having a car that's so low to the ground, obviously it's going to be expensive too. Like if you damage your bumper, like let's have a look at this. When you have a low car, stuff like this happens, right? And if you're first learning to drive, this could be a lot more common, you know what I mean? Replacing whole bars, repairing them, painting them, it's not a cheap endeavor, and it will cost you a bit of money. And that ties into another thing as well, right? The parts for these things are a lot more expensive. So the S15 would be a lot more expensive and harder to maintain, like compared to like a cheaper car. Like if you get a little Starlet or a Charade or something like that, a lot cheaper to own, maintain and fix, especially when you have your first car. That's something that's going to be a massive plus. Now this next point is probably the most important and biggest reason why I think you probably shouldn't get an S15 for your first car. It all has to do with the rear end of the S15, and the reason why that is because the S15 Silvia and even just the S chassis as a whole are renowned for being very tail happy cars, right? The rear end of these cars kick out very easily, and if you're not experienced at driving, it is incredibly dangerous. And the car doesn't need a lot of power to be at risk of kicking out, and these things can kick out in the dry pretty easily, but especially in the wet, it is actually so dangerous when you're driving these. Like when I first bought this car, the day I bought it, it rained that very night, and it was my first turbo, first rear wheel drive, and I'd already been driving for a few years. I was getting my full license in a couple weeks after that, so I already had a lot of experience driving as a whole, but I came from driving only front wheel drive cars up until that point. But here I was in my first turbo and rear wheel drive, and the roads were a bit wet. I was in second gear, and I literally just gave a little bit of throttle, and the car kicked out. The back end kicked out, and I was literally just basically fishtailing like that, swerving like this. Didn't know how to control it. I'm lucky I saved it, but luckily I let off the throttle and I managed to save it. But that was the day I bought the car, and the very first time driving it in the rain. And that's not the first time this has happened. I still remember once I was driving up a hill in third gear. I was doing 50 k's an hour, and I was just applying a bit more throttle as I'm going up a hill, and then all of a sudden, slowly the back end started going to the right. I had to quickly let off and straighten up. I was in third gear, 50 k's an hour and up a hill, and it still kicked out on me, and it got me by surprise. So, and that is a universal experience for these cars. And pretty much every time it's raining in Australia, there's pretty much always a Facebook post where you see an S15 that's crashed into a tree, or that's been ridden off, or has spun out or something like that. It always happens. So it's definitely a very common thing with these cars. So with everything that I've just spoken about in mind, honestly, that is why I genuinely don't think that the S15 Silvia is a good idea for a first car, and I don't think that it's safe either. And if you just got your license and you're thinking of getting one of these for your first car, I really hope that you can keep these things in mind and maybe just wait a little bit longer until you have a bit more experience before you jump into one of these things. And these cars are already so hard to come by, so the last thing that we need is even more of these cars getting ridden off and gone for good, really. And don't get me wrong, guys, I'm not saying that you shouldn't get like a fun or cool first car. There's definitely a bunch of cars that you can get. We can still have a bunch of fun, and also they're safe to learn on and cheap. And some of these cars that I would recommend would be a Toyota Starlet, a Daihatsu Charade, a CE Mitsubishi Lancer Coupe, a Mitsubishi Mirage. Like, they're very cheap cars. You can do some awesome modifications to them, and they're so cheap to own and maintain. And they're great platforms to, get some driving experience under your belt and eventually move into a more powerful car. And guys, I know that there's going to be some of you watching that, regardless of what I've said, are still going to be getting an S15 for your first car. And you're probably thinking, who's this old man telling me not to get an S15? I'm going to get one anyway. But for those of you that are going to do that, I want you to listen up, because I've got some advice that will definitely make it a whole lot safer and better for you when you have one of these as a first car. So one of the first things that you need to do when you get one of these things is go straight to a track and learn how to control this thing in a safe and controlled environment. And if you're in Sydney, Australia, we're very lucky to have Sydney Motorsport Park, where there is the wet skid pan event where you can simulate driving this car in an environment where the roads are wet, and they have heaps of different events. There's driving sports, Australian Drift Club, and they have beginner classes where they can even have it like an instructor with you and show you how to control your car when it kicks out in a tight environment. And once you get the hang of it, you can even have some fun and slide and drift around the track, which are definitely very good skills to learn and have when you have a rear-wheel drive and turbo and you're driving it on the street. And I definitely recommend going to a few wet skid pan events to really get some confidence under your belt. It's good to have that experience and actually know what to do if you're on the street and the car kicks out. So it's a good thing because it's a whole lot of fun taking it to the track, but it also makes it a whole lot safer when you're driving this thing on the street, and it protects your pride and joy. Like, you don't want to smash this thing, you don't want it to kick out and get damaged or lose the car. So with that, you can have fun sliding this at the track, and you can have a whole lot of confidence driving this around on the street. Hey guys, Future Jordan here, and this is something that I had to add in this video because this actually happened on the exact same day I filmed this video too, and I'm sure you've all seen it all over the news and on social media. This white S15 Silvia that crashed in Adelaide basically flipped over on its side, which is insane. And this perfectly ties into what I'm saying. You can clearly hear in the video the guy dumps the clutch in first gear, spinning, snaps into second. The car's kicked out, he didn't know how to control it, lost control, crashed and flipped the car over on its side, which is absolutely insane. And this is obviously a prime example of why you should not do this stuff on the street at all, especially if you're not experienced and don't know how to control the car properly. And when you do things outside of your comfort zone, stuff like this can happen and go wrong. And unfortunately, that's what's happened with this guy. And you can see the car's flipped over, and that's another S15 completely lost for literally no reason. But yeah, I hope this further drills in my point as to why you got to keep it on the track, learn how to control the car properly, because if you spin out on a track, you just drive back on and you do another lap. But if you make a mistake on the street or lose control on the street, you can end up injuring or potentially killing an innocent member of the public, yourself, your passengers, and of course riding off your car as well. And all of that can and should be avoided if you just do the right thing and keep it to the track and learn how to control this car properly. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and got something out of it as well. And guys, don't get me wrong, if you really want to get an S15, you can totally get one, but I just really hope you can keep my advice and some of the things in this video in mind before you buy one. And I just really want you guys to be safe at the end of the day and also not risk losing or damaging your S15s. If you guys want some more info on the best first cars that you can get, I've done a video on it before. I'll link it right up here if you guys want to check it out. So I'm going to leave the video there, guys, and if you want to support the channel, the best way to do that is by hitting that subscribe button, and you can also support by heading to ThatCarLife.com.au. You can get apparel such as the Triple S Sexy Tee like this, which has been a top seller at the moment. We also do custom apparel where we get your very own car drawn and put on a t-shirt or hoodie, and all of that will be linked down below at ThatCarLife.com.au. So thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one on That Car Life.